So this is coming out this Thursday, right, guys? Like, I know in the world of podcasts, it doesn't make no difference.
I don't know. Yeah,
this Thursday could be this Thursday 3 years from now. But this Thursday, I will actually have my first wrestling match since March for Black Label Pro. I'm excited to get in a car and travel to a wrestling event. Although I will be packing a mask and rubber gloves because part of my booking arrangement with my booking fee, I was like, because I just normally negotiate a gimmick table for high spots and myself. And all of a sudden I realized, I don't know if the gimmick, like as the virtual gimmick table guy, I don't know if real gimmick tables are a thing anymore. So
fuck that.
I have to get a COVID test. I have to buy some rubber gloves and I'm going to get a whole bunch of hand sanitizers. So I don't know how, like, the interaction of people, like, and that's so weird, is that a guy who's worked for highspots.com and made a living off selling my wares at a merch table in this world of social distancing and sanitizing everything. I don't know how that's going to work. Like, I feel like I'm going to have to put hand sanitizers on Matt Hardy comic art pieces. Like, I don't know how signing a picture is going to go down. Like, I feel like I have to sign the picture, put it in a plastic top loader, and then hand it to the person. I'm trying not to have anxiety about it and just focus on the match because I'm just going to get in there and wrestle without a mask on, and it doesn't make a difference anyways with the 4 that I'm wrestling that live in different geographic locations of the country. But, you know, I'm worried about how I'm going to interact with somebody at a merch table.
That's the real worry. Do you know the capacity for the show? Do you know how many people?
It is limited. I know that much. That we are taking as many precautions as possible. I'm actually bringing a brand new canvas, so there'll be no like lingering germs or anything. I'm bringing a brand new turnbuckle pads as well. So, thank you to Mikey from Black Label Pro for buying that from highspots.com. And also thank you, Conrad Thompson, because I know Conrad Thompson, big listener of 10 Bell Pod. he records like 6 podcasts a week, and he still takes the time out of his busy schedule to listen to 10 Bell Pod. Thank you so much, Conrad, for listening this week, buddy. I appreciate it. He actually contributed to paying for the canvas and the turnbuckle pads. So
nice.
The whole community of professional wrestling kind of pulling together and actually getting out and meeting and interacting with people. And so if you guys this Saturday have IWTV, you can watch me on Black Label Pro be in a 4-way match with, I believe it's Dan the Dad, Cabana Mandam, and of course Colin Delaney. So it'll be interesting how I know Dan the Dad and I, that makes sense. Cabana Mandam, I think, is only there because they couldn't get the real Colt Cabana. And then Colin Delaney, I think I know why he's there. I don't know yet, so it'll be interesting. It's going to be fun.
Can you hit him with a location and a date and a time?
Oh, yes. August 22nd, I believe it is 4 or 5 o'clock. It's on IWTV, Black Label Pro. This Saturday, if you're listening to this in a timely fashion, August 22nd.
Nice.
So I guess August 22nd also, this episode, this is fun. We almost never do it the week of because it's hard on me. But shit, welcome to 10 Bell Pod. My name's Nick. I am joined by Michael Loving.
Hey, and by the time you hear this also, Daniel Cormier will have knocked out Stipe Miocic in the 4th round to win their trilogy. So that's interesting. And also just throw a R.I.P. Kamal out there. That's what I'm going to end on.
We are also joined by Blame It All on My Troop that I showed up in boots and ruined your campsite affair. The Man Scout Jake Manning, everyone.
Why didn't we start with that and just talk about Garth Brooks? Because I guarantee I'm going to listen to Garth Brooks while I'm driving to Black Label Pro this Saturday, August 22nd, available on IWTV.
You know, I just found out that Garth Brooks was a big gay rights activist and even spoke out even in the early 90s.
He was the man. Also, too, like he's very weird on social media. Let's not look past the fact that if you see any video of him online, it is the weirdest, creepiest shit you'll ever fucking see in your life. He doesn't know how to talk into a camera. Like, he just doesn't.
Huh.
Possibly a wrestling fan because he's all into the gimmicks with the Chris Gaines thing. Remember that?
That's
true. That was like Garth Brooks' Crow Sting or something.
Yeah, that was his Eminem to his Marshall Mathers. Yeah.
Well, we're not talking about Garth Brooks today. May he live on for eternity. Today we are talking about Umaga. What do you guys think about Umaga?
Any 350-pound man who can do a nip up, pretty fucking cool.
As I said before we got a microphone, this one's going to be a little tough, and I'm going to try to be as fair as possible. Just because I know that some people really, really liked Umaga and considered him a friend. But as you'll probably see later on as we discuss throughout, me being the guy who's usually at the bottom of the totem pole, my rule is always like, if you can treat someone like me well, you're a good person. Some people do a good job of treating people that are in a higher position or an equal position, and then treat people like me like shit. Like Nick's favorite wrestler, AJ Styles. So he kind of falls in that same category, so I'm going to try to be as fair to him as possible because I had a few interactions with him that weren't great, but at the same time, too, I think a lot of people have had some very good interactions with him, and I'm going to be as fair as possible. So in advance, I apologize, but once you hear my story, I think you may be on my side, as you guys always are, especially you, Conrad Thompson. Thank you so much for listening again, buddy. Give you another shout out.
I'll throw this out here real quick. Most beautiful Samoan drop in the business. It is so good.
And you got to point out the pop-up Samoan drop is one of the coolest fucking moves. I mean, he would hit it so good every time.
Well, also, too, with him, he had one of the best action figures. Like, his debuting Umaga action figure. There's a few figures got their first in the line that were the hottest, and it was CM Punk's first action figure. That was one of the hottest. There's a Hornswoggle figure that was much smaller than all the rest. Obviously, it was to scale compared to all the rest of them. So, like, just the packaging alone was great. And then also to Umaga's action figure. These are all Ruthless Aggression series, too, I should say. Except CM Punk's was the ECW version of that because it had the nice yellow and black gear with it as well.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but Umaga's action figure sold extremely, extremely well. So I'm sure there's quite a big market for it out there.
Let's just get into it. Edward Smith Fatu was born March 28th, 1973 in America, Samoa.
And does anybody really want to know that Andrew Whitall, a semi-famous cricketer from Zimbabwe, was also born on this day? Because that's really all I got. So moving on, Nick.
Fatu was part of that legendary Anawahi family. His uncles were Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans. Eddie is the uncle of the Usos, and he's also the cousin of Yokozuna, The Rock, Rosie, and Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And I think two of my cousins are in prison for robbing a bank. That's all I got in my family.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah, that's as fast and furious as my family gets.
Well, I like that Fast and Furious reference when you're talking about The Rock. You just kind of wrap that in there. That's beautiful.
Because it is all about family.
Yeah.
Fatu trained with his cousin Matt Anawahi at the Wild Samoans Wrestling School, and by 95 he was done training and he debuted in his uncle Afa's promotion, World Extreme Wrestling.
Otherwise known as WXW, which Afa was always a huge supporter of female wrestling. Like, he would always have like an all-female tournament and let some of these girls stay at his house because at the time he was doing these female shows and female tournaments, a lot of these girls, like, if you were a good female wrestler, the nearest good female wrestler to you geographically was 6 hours away. So, like, I know girls that were really good that lived in Minneapolis, and she'd be like, hey, I know there's this other really good girl who lives in Kansas City. Let's see if we can get booked in a show in Illinois. It's
wow.
That was kind of the way it worked. So when Afa started having this big female tournament and figured out who, like, some of the hot indie girls were, he'd, like, open the door to him, like, hey, you can stay at my house. We're going to do this big tournament. You're going to get paid fairly decently. And he was doing this in the early 2000s while they were doing bra and panties matches and putting matches on Raw. But he's like, nah, I want these girls to come in and just have badass matches. A lot of women, like, I believe April Hunter, Mercedes Martinez, a lot of very early indie women, the opportunity. I think even Sarah Del Rey was one of those women that got the opportunity at just being respected female athletes. And Afa was opening his doors and doing that before everybody else is. So I just want to give Afa a little nod at being on the right side of history.
That's cool.
So there's kind of a gap in Umaga's history here, but presumably he was hustling around the indies after getting trained. But in 99, he landed a job in Japan's Frontier Martial Arts. wrestling with his cousin Matt, and Matt's gonna kind of hang out with Eddie at the beginning of his career. They would start a tag team in FMW called Armageddon, going by Armageddon 1, Armageddon 2, before they'd make the name change to the Samoans. And I mean, this is FMW. He's taking on Masato Tanaka, Hayabusa, having tons of tag matches.
Mr. Ganasoke, oh yeah. And I mean, I guess we got to plug our Hayabusa episode. If you haven't listened to that, go fucking listen to that.
And our Onita episode, which is going to happen probably in the next 100 years, because that man will never die, ever, and he will always look like he's 20 years old. So,
Facts.
In 2001, Fatu, along with his cousin Matt, got signed to a developmental deal with the WWF, and they would become the Island Boys, with Eddie becoming ECMO Fatu. They cut their teeth in Heartland Wrestling Association, as well as Memphis, while doing the occasional dark match or house show.
If you want to see some early footage of them as the Island Boys, there is a WXW match. I think it's around this time. Them versus the Backseat Boys, who we recently covered Trent Acid, but you get to see ECMO do a top rope splash, hitting Trent Acid and Johnny Cashmere, and just burying the shit out of them. But it's kind of fun to see them tangle up.
yeah, kind of lost in the history is that Memphis developmental territory. They call it like Power Pro. Like you had obviously the Island Boys 3-minute warning, as they will soon become, as we'll soon discuss. You had the Haas brothers. You had Brian Kendrick. You had Brian Danielson. You had Ron Killings. You had Tracy Smothers there as a trainer, but working in the ring that night. Jason Arndt, Reckless Youth. I mean, you had just a tremendous amount of talent that just wrestling in front of armories all over Tennessee. I think Victoria was even in the mix there too. These are a good picture of all those people kind of there, or most of them at least, a big group picture of all of them looking just so young. And eventually a lot of these guys will be the ones that filter into the Ruthless Aggression era and be with WWE for years and still be wrestling decades past it. It's kind of an interesting piece of history. It will always get lost. I mean, I liked it when the network stepped back and acknowledged FCW is kind of an important thing to get to NXT. But I think there could be something done for that Power Pro Memphis area, but there's a lot of issues with it. I mean, even Regal was there, I believe, as a trainer, but it seemed like a very, very weird place. A lot of things are get lost to history of it, but it fascinates me because it's so eclectic and unique in the history of the developmental process of the WWE.
Both cousins would get called up to the main roster July of 2002, with Eddie getting renamed Jamal and Matt getting renamed Rosie, and the team getting renamed 3-Minute Warning. They were the hired enforcers of Eric Bischoff, where he gave people 3 minutes, and if they didn't entertain them, he would put them in the NWO, then take them out of the NWO, but then maybe they were still in the NWO, and by the time you figured it all out, the company was out of business.
Somebody just uploaded about a 5-minute full compilation on YouTube just of 3-Minute Warning and all their massive ass kickings. And just, man, the high impact moves they would hit in that short span of when they would go in there and destroy people was always just exciting as hell, because it almost looked like, oh man, these guys are shooting in there. They're just legitimately beating the shit out of people.
Because they were. That's probably that's exactly what's happening. And also, too, there's kind of like, there's not so much anymore. There's always kind of been that tag team that you kind of need to be heaters. Like the Acolytes, like the APA, like there's that, but they were not quite used in the same capacity. Obviously, it's 3-Minute Warning. 3-Minute Warning is used very similarly to what the Road Warriors were back in the day. There was always this thing, especially in the Crockett territory when the Road Warriors were there, like, this is before headsets and obviously all that, but you'd have somebody like, Gene Anderson, when he would bite the pencil, that let referee know to let him know to take it home. And if they didn't,
cool.
And if they didn't take it home in enough time, they get one more warning. And if they didn't, they would then play Iron Man and they would send out the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
That's basically like if you went super over in your time, so they'd be like, hit Iron Man. And then they would just send the Road Warriors to the ring and have them beat the shit out of them. Even though they're going to come back in the main event, they'd be like, nope, these guys are over on their time. Fuck them. Send the Road Warriors. And then even too, in Ring of Honor, they had a Dark City Fight Club, which is John Davis and Rain Man. Sometimes, just if you had like a dark match, you had guys that set up the ring and it wasn't going all that great, they'd send Dark City. Like, all right, well, I mean, this is not going great as opposed to this thing getting to conclusion. We'll just send Dark City and beat the fuck out of him. It's like, hey, guys, sorry it didn't work out for you. The crowd's dying. We need him up. We just did this. So that's very much what 3-minute warning is. It's probably humiliating when you have that happen to you. But, I mean, it's good to have that, just to kind of have that constant fear. Like, if you fuck up, like, this could happen. And it is embarrassing when that does happen. It's cool for the fans. I guess as a booker, it's nice to have that tool. They're like, hey, guys, if you fuck up, we're going to send Dark City.
Which I just assume is the same way that Paul Heyman, after his fourth line of blow, would just send in 9/11. Right?
Yeah, that'd be the same. Like, there's always that night. Like, and 3-minute warning was definitely that. You know, like I said, that's not great. So I don't see that a lot so much in wrestling culture right, so much anymore. Nobody's like, hey, send Nick Gage. Like, nobody's doing that. Although that'd be fucking awesome. But of course, here's the thing. Nick Gage is such a nice human being. He would go out there and be like, sorry, bro, gotta do it. Like, he's too nice of a person.
I just realized I called 911 9/11, but I think that
same
works.
difference. So they made their official debut July 22nd, 2002 on Raw. D'Lo Brown and Sean Stasiak were having a match. Bischoff gave them 3 minutes, didn't impress them, so out come the big guys. Hit that amazing pop-up Samoan drop. Rosie hits a Vader bomb, and we have 2 shiny new heels in town.
And Bischoff's being totally unfair. It's only like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It's just bullshit.
Y'all ready to get immediately problematic as fuck?
Yeah.
Bischoff used the team to break up Billy and Chuck's union ceremony?
Commitment ceremony, I think is what they called it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so weird. And then then they just kind of like came out and just like, oh yeah, well, we're not gay. Like,
No.
But we're gonna do like all Ace and Gary like ambiguously gay stunts up until this, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, it's all a publicity stunt, and then like back away from it. And from what I've heard in every interview from Billy Gunn's like, oh no, I was all ready to just commit to this and say, yeah, I'm gay. And like he was like, he was about ready to do everything up until like actual penetration with Chuck Palumbo on television. Like he's like, no, let's represent the gay community. But at the same time too, then you're dealing with the sense of like taking straight people to play gay people when you could just have gay people be gay people, and that's an even another problematic thing. We just got past that even recently on WWE television when you have clearly somebody who is LGBTQ and you are not recognizing and using a storyline of that properly and respectfully, and it's just it's not that fucking hard. It's not that hard.
Then we got the Godfather coming out trying some conversion therapy with the hose. It's all very bizarre. And then Bischoff's in his special effects makeup looking like Dan Aykroyd, nothing but trouble. The whole thing is just a fucking amazing disaster.
Oh, but it gets worse. So as part of this attack during the ceremony, they also hit Miss Stephanie McMahon. And this leads to a big old angle and match at 2002's Unforgiven. 3-minute warning would also get Billy and Chuck's Weasel turncoat manager Rico their first televised match as a tag team. And you know what? Just talking about the actual match, holy shit, I did not expect it to be this fun. It was a fun match.
It really is.
A tag match with Billy Gunn? That's awesome. Yeah, of course. He's the fucking best. Like, that's the thing that's incredible about the AEW stuff, and you have all the wrestlers around the ring. You have Billy Gunn, like, out there cheering you on. Billy Gunn's career is him standing on the apron cheering somebody on. Of course it's fantastic. And then I think somebody was talking about, oh gosh, who we have in recently from AEW? I think it might have been Adam Page. And he was talking about when you're wrestling on Dynamite, that you could always hear Austin Gunn like cheering you on. And I was like, no shit. His father was the best at standing on the outside and cheering somebody on. Of course he's going to have the same genetic material to be the best fucking cheerleader for a wrestling match ever. Of course. So once Austin Gunn gets big enough, he finds the right partner. He's going to be one of the best hot tag men of all time. And I stand by that firmly. Billy Gunn is one of the best guys to work an apron and one of the best hot tag men ever.
Speaking of Billy, he hits a fucking amazing Famouser in this.
Yeah, it looks so cool.
It's like on the level of RKO out of nowhere, Famouser, like out of just dropping out of the ceiling. It's insane. The big guys, the Samoans, get the win here. And per stipulation of this match, Stephanie has to participate in, and I quote, hot lesbian action.
I was hoping we skipped over this, and then I remember, like, no, that was the stip of this fucking match. Forgot.
Yeah, but it was the whole way they did it, because they would keep talking about HLA, and I was like, HLA? I don't remember any of this. And then they finally busted out, and I was like, oh, God, yeah.
Because even, like, 3-minute warning, like, beat the crap out of, like, women that were supposed to do HLA on Raw and destroyed them, and just... I know we skipped over that, but since you brought it up, it's seared in my memory. Like, even as a horny 19, 20-year-old male, I even felt uncomfortable with this. I'm like, really? Like, I'm not watching wrestling for porn. You know what I'm saying? No, don't get me wrong. I'll look for some pictures for Trish Stratus online. Like, I'll dig deep. I'll do that, but that's outside of wrestling. When I see Trish Stratus on television in a wrestling ring, I want to see her wrestle. I want to see her have a badass match. And that's what I want to see when I see wrestling. I want to see a badass match. If I want to see porn, I'll go watch porn. I don't know why.
You don't like sex with your violence, Jake?
I mean, when I'm watching porn, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I'll watch it then.
But not, okay.
Wrestling is... This conversation will delineate into something far different. I just think the sanctity of professional wrestling. I'm going to go, I consider myself Christian, but at the same time, too, I consider wrestling to be my religion. And I hate it when it is sullied. I hate it when it is, just sullied and bastardized and corrupted. I believe that's kind of the word. Is it just like, it's go out and have a match, man. And I'm not asking for everybody to work a hold and do it old schools. I mean, you could have a good 3-minute match. You could have a good 12-minute match. Somebody can go out there for 45 minutes too and work a hold or whatever. It could be different things. It could be at 4-ways, multi-man matches, car crashes, technical matches. It makes no difference. Just give me fucking wrestling. From male, female, or whoever. That's what I want. Let's just give me fucking wrestling. Sorry, my name is Jim Ross. Should I make a reference about Bonanza right now? I don't know.
Well, this would lead to quite possibly one of the worst segments in WWE history, which is saying a lot. Bischoff brings out 2 hot models to do some hot lesbian action, but last second they stop because Bischoff wants some ULA ugly lesbian action.
Uh-huh.
The ugly lady they sent out is Rikishi in pseudo blackface, and he attacks Bischoff. And at the end of the day, we get no lesbian actions in LA, if you will, which are my initials. My mom did name me after this angle.
That's awesome. And Nick, she has a name. Her name was Hildegard, so please give respect.
Following this, Jamal would enter his first ever Royal Rumble in January 2003, coming down at 21 and lasted 16 minutes. He gets a stink face from his real-life brother Rikishi, and the big man eliminates 0 people before Monster Energy drink decal Undertaker eliminates him. Jamal crashes to the outside where he bumps into someone who was also just tossed out by the lead singer of the band Hinder Undertaker, John Cena, foreshadowing. Following the Rumble, the team would start losing on TV, picking up the occasional win on Sunday Night Heat, but they're kind of getting de-pushed here because specifically Eddie was in hot water backstage. Mr. Fatu was getting the reputation for being too stiff in the ring. He was hurting people. On top of that, Eddie was reportedly in a bar fight. So after about 11 months in the WWF, he was fired, leaving Rosie and the company to fend all for himself.
One match you should definitely check out. It's kind of one of the best squashes I've seen in forever. You get 3-minute warning Enrico versus only Spike Dudley.
Oh, God.
It's 2/17/2003. And poor Spike, I mean, in ECW, he let Mike Awesome and Bigelow pretty much murder him. And it comes pretty close to it in this match, too. I'd recommend watching that if you just are a sadist and you enjoy people getting thrown to the wolves. And I forgot to bring this one up, but also go back and watch the Survivor Series 2002 match they had with the Dudleys. It's an elimination tables match. It feels like old school ECW, crazy spots galore. It's fun as fuck. Definitely watch that.
On September 24th, 03, Eddie debuted in TNA under the ring name Ekmo Fatu, and this is back in TNA's weekly pay-per-view days, but he's taken on Shark Boy, Mad Mikey, aka Crash Holly, who we just did. He'd run into Ron Killings, and even CM Punk. More foreshadowing.
There's an Alex Shelley match, and there's a America's Most Wanted match you can find. I think they're on YouTube. But one thing, every promotion that Eddie Fatu was in, he had no problem taking a chair shot straight to the fucking dome, totally unprotected, over and over and over. He takes a bunch in TNA, and Abyss hits him with one that I'm pretty sure immediately gave him CTE. It's hard to watch at times, but it's also exciting.
So by November 03, Fatu was back in Japan, this time with All Japan going by Jamal. He'd immediately hop into the Real World Tag League tournament, teaming up with Just Incredible. And obviously we all know him as Umaga. That's the title of this episode. But All Japan, he spent a huge chunk of his career there.
I mean, he had over 140 matches, November 2003 to September 2005. I mean, when I was doing all my research, that was the thing that stood out to me. When I kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through this, I was like, shit, this was like the bulk, man.
And unfortunately, this time of All Japan is as it's going down very slowly.
Yeah.
This is obviously, post the passing of Giant Baba himself. It's mostly Mrs. Baba, and I don't know exactly who's calling the shots this time. I think Quada may be involved, but he's far more interested in being an in-ring performer. Stan Hansen maybe a little bit more involved, but also it's like a weird time in Japan too. Like New Japan's incorporating more shoot style stuff and MMA fighters and kind of doing less pro wrestling stuff and being less of a spectacle and being more concerned with being more real. And then also too, you're having like the weird thing of like someone like Muda coming over as Kenji Emoto, and he's coming in. He's primarily known as a New Japan guy. He's still working for New Japan, but then he's coming over, winning the Triple Crown in All Japan. And then it's like this, like it's All Japan working with New Japan, and like it's very weird climate and things going on. And then even some of the Americans that they brought in, it was kind of like. They were good and great, but they didn't know quite what to do with them. And some of them were a little bit past their prime. Like, no offense to Dr. Death, but I think they were bringing him over at this time. They were bringing Mike Rotunda over. Guys that obviously they brought over did well with this time, and they're wonderful. But, like, finding those newer talent, I think that's what they're trying to get. When they brought over Jamal, they brought over D'Lo Brown, and he was incredible over there. Like, some of D'Lo's All Japan stuff, go fucking seek that shit out. It's incredible. He was unbelievable. And anytime, like, you saw D'Lo post his All Japan run, like, it was pretty fucking incredible. But you had someone like Tai Okea, and you didn't know what to do. I know I'm rambling right now. All Japan was fucking weird this time, man.
Because Kobashi, Masawa, and like Akiyama, they left to make Noah, right? And it kind of pretty much crippled him.
Yeah, pretty much when Noah popped up. And Noah was kind of the hot promotion at the time. Like what you see now with wrestling over there, that's what Noah was doing at the time. And Noah would still be a bigger thing if it wasn't for Masawa's passing as well. So, once you lost Kobashi and Masawa and Akira Taue, I believe it's Tawa, And then, of course, I think Vader was over there. Too Cold Scorpio was over there. You had all these really great Super Juniors. Like, All Japan was just kind of left with just Kawada. So that's why they had to team up with New Japan. And New Japan was like, yeah, sure. We can have some more guys because Noah's going to fuck up our business, too.
Yeah, I think my favorite weird trivia bit of looking up All Japan stuff is that Eddie would normally wrestle in either a number 32 Shaquille O'Neal or a number 3 Dwayne Wade Miami Heat jersey every time.
Jake, what is the pro wrestling equivalent of missing a free throw?
If Shaq was a wrestler and he was constantly missing free throws, what would that be in pro wrestling?
Like taking an awkward looking like backdrop.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Or an oddly timed like hip toss, like kind of missing that a little bit. Not like an
yeah, we were thinking arm drags.
Yeah, well, like you're getting the turn to the side arm drag, which I fucking hate. As opposed to the end over end type fucking arm drag. Yeah, that'd be like taking the arm drag to the side. I've seen guys do that, and I fucking yell at students when they do that kind of side twist arm drag thing. Yeah. And I told them, like, if you ever do that in my fucking class, because we're supposed to be known for having great arms drags at this school, you go ahead, you take your boots off, and you leave because you're done training for the day.
I guess with the decline of All Japan, their kind of marketing and exposure was down because, like, I'm sure this is all buried in the annals of High Spots, but a lot of this All Japan stuff is hard to find. So big chunk of Eddie Fatu's career that's just somewhere, but not easily Googleable.
Well, see, here's the issue with that is because that product isn't so hot. Tape traders aren't going like, hey, can you get me some of that?
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of these clips online is because there were so many copies of it out. Because like, oh, you got to give me that Super J Cup 94. Like that tape's getting passed around. Give me the Best of Rey Mysterio. That stuff's getting passed around. When it gets to a point of like, hey, do you want All Japan from 2004? Nah, can you give me some Noah stuff? Yeah, I'll get you some Noah stuff because it was a little difficult. It still was kind of in that tape trading era and before everything was online and streaming and before YouTube and all of those things. It was definitely like a point of like, hey, I can only put so many things on this VHS tape. I can only put so many things on this DVD. I can only put so many of these physical medias into a manila envelope and mail to you from Japan because there's somebody over there recording it. And it's like, hey, is it worth my time to record All Japan? No, I'm more worried in Noah. Okay, then I'll stop recording All Japan. I'll just send you Noah stuff. So that's basically why that happens. It's not so much that they weren't doing it or they stopped doing it or the exposure of there was different. It was more of the demand over here for the product.
There's a Kawada match versus ECMO for the Triple Crown you can find on YouTube. And then the match that him and Taioki win the tag titles, which apparently they were a fantastic tag team, but there's not much footage like Jake just said.
Taioki, one of the few High Spot shooter interviews we never released.
Oh.
Whoa!
Is there a story
There's
with that?
A lot of story there.
It was awful, apparently.
It was just bad?
It was
not
just
interesting bad?
No, it was just he wouldn't talk. He was nervous. He was drinking water all the time and shaking. All Michael could get out of him was one story about Baba hitting people away from the All Japan talent bus with an umbrella. That's the only thing that you got out of him that was halfway interesting. And Michael's like, I can't release this shit.
Oh.
So Jamal left All Japan in December of 2005 because he was going back to the WWE. Fatu returned on the April 3rd, 2006 episode of Raw with a new character called Umaga, a savage Samoan warrior guy. And this is like a 1979 gimmick.
Well, you got to keep in mind of the dinosaurs that are working for WWE at that time and how they felt about female wrestling. So not too far of a stretch. And it's kind of weird because 3 Minute Warning was like, hey, we're Samoan, but we wear this we're more modern, all that stuff. But then it also harkens back to, speaking of problematic things, a Jamie Dundee shooter interview with highspots.com where the topic of Samoa Joe came up. It's online, and Jamie Dundee is just like, Samoa Joe, what the fuck is that shit? I know about Samoans. They fucking wrestle barefoot. They come off the top rope, give you a headbutt, get juice on you. That's a fucking Samoan. Like, he basically cut that interview at the same time Umaga came out, and that was always the thing, too, that people are like, oh, why does fucking... The same thing that you brought up, like, why does Umaga have to be a savage, but Samoa Joe is over here? But then there were some people who were like, why can't Samoa Joe just be more like Umaga? And then you even kind of saw him, like he started putting that face paint on, like Samoa Joe tried to ride that line as well, as opposed to just being the guy in biker shorts. It's a really great wrestler. Like, it's just, I remember, like, that dichotomy of Umaga and Samoa Joe, and people were like, well, Umaga's making a lot more money over at the other station, and Samoa Joe, you just being in your biker shorts ain't making any money with your kick pads. Like, that was something that people were saying fucking aloud. Like, no, we need you to be more of a savage. Don't be this really great fucking wrestler, Samoa Joe. Like, people were saying that to him, and like, that was a discussion that was fucking had. And then of course you see WWE and what they're doing compared to TNA, and like, the data would lead you to be correct. Like, yeah, fucking backwards thinking is correct because it's financially successful. And yeah, so it's just fucking weird.
So 'twas the night after WrestleMania 22, and Ric Flair is cutting a promo out in Chicago when manager Armando Alejandro Estrada interrupts him. This was really Hazeem Ali from Chicago, so I don't think the Cuban accent was real. Umaga walks out looking just like Maui from Moana and beats up Ric Flair. What can I say except you're welcome, Jake?
We should have had Umaga like collect the debt from us. Like, that's what we'd have done. And just like, hey, once you beat the shit, hand him a bill for $42,000 so Jake Manning can actually cash his fucking paycheck.
Umaga would meet Ric Flair at 2006's Backlash because if you want to get over as a credible heel, you got to fist fight a senior citizen. Despite this match being under 4 minutes, we get every Ric Flair spot in it. Thumb to an eye, 2 low blows, tree of woe, attempt at a figure 4, and of course, some chops. But nothing would stop the big man, and he puts down Flair with an Ernie Lat thumb. Following this Ric Flair bit, Umaga started out an epic undefeated streak, and aside from crushing a few cans on Raw, he'd get some incredible wins over HBK, Jim Duggan, Kamala RIP, Eugene, Triple H, leading up to his first big feud that would start at 2006's SummerSlam. So at SummerSlam, Vince and Shane McMahon were taking on the Generation X, HBK and Triple H. Before the match, they send out like half the locker room to try and beat them down, but they fend them off. They have the actual match. Umaga comes down. He hits Shawn. He gets in the ring. Samoan spikes, trips. But then Kane comes out and fights Umaga back to the back. Generation X goes on to win, but this would start the feud between two monsters, Kane and Umaga. They'd hop on the house show loops together before doing a Loser Leaves Raw match on the October 9th episode of Raw. And this has to be the lowest stakes Loser Leaves Town match ever. Like, your career isn't over. Your run in the company isn't over. You're just going to go wrestle on TV a different night.
Yeah,
sorry, kid, you're going to be blue instead of red now.
He hits a Superman Samoan spike in this one, which I think is the only one he ever hit because he had to bust out the Superman to kill Kane. And I can't remember which match I watched, but Umaga hits a great fucking shining wizard on Kane. If you can find that, it's pretty special.
Clearly something he got from All Japan.
Yeah, right?
Those two worked well together. You think two big lumbering giants, it's always a little awkward, but they had good matches, man.
Yeah, the Unforgiven match is pretty solid. He hits Samoan drops on Kane and they look good. That says a lot.
Yeah, Kane, very, very underrated. I'd say, but the thing is, interesting about Kane that some people have an issue with, when Kane wrestled him, it was boring. Or Kane, he has certain chemistry with certain people, and when he has chemistry with a certain person, it's incredible. It's fantastic. And then there's other times it's like, oh, this is just like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely, even for his size, it's a good analogy. He's a home run hitter. He's a Cecil Fielder. He's definitely a guy. He could play the field, but really the back end of his career and being a DH, that's where he's at. He's going to come up. He's going to hit you some home runs. He's going to do all right with it. He's going to be spectacular when he does. He's going to get you the hits you need. You probably need a bench runner when he does get on base if it's a single, but definitely a guy you want on your squad because he's going to connect with that ball. He's probably going to get you some home runs. He's going to get you some doubles and triples. He's going to get you some RBIs for sure.
To kick Kane off Raw, Estrada hits him with this big block of wood. It kind of looks like a giant train whistle. Then he gets a Samoan spike, the 3 count, and Kane has to go to the other brand, leaving Umaga looking for a new challenger. Still not having been pinned, he would become the rightful number 1 contender to the WWE Championship, held by none other than John Cena. But to get to John Cena, Umaga would first face one last obstacle. On December 4th, 2006's Raw, Umaga would stare down none other than the Man Scout, Jake Manning.
Oh, man, I still get goosebumps thinking about watching this for the first time.
You're watching it. How about living the fucking thing? All right, so this is why you want to listen to this fucking episode. Sometimes we do people that we obviously have to do that I've never met before, but I have a fucking story, and this is the Umaga story. This was my first Extra Talent spot. And if you listen to the Extra Talented podcast I did with Zane Riley, which I still feel like exists somewhere out in the world, and I think I've even mentioned one of the stories on here. This is where I saw Vince McMahon and Hardcore Holly have that interaction with the big tie. That was this time.
All right. Cool.
This is also the time where, as Extra Talent, you want to be seen but not heard. So I posted up right where everybody was coming in, so I could say hello to everybody when they come in. So I get the handshakes out of the way. They see me. Maybe a writer's trying to figure out, what should we do? We need somebody to do this tonight. And then when they walk through the door, there's the bald-looking guy that you've been looking for your entire life to do this spot. And this is where I, Triple H and Vince and Stephanie were all walking in together, and I'll never forget Vince was like, "Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing today?" And like, of course, this is all security is a bit more lax. Things are chill. You're allowed to hang out. You're allowed to talk to people. You're allowed to be down by ringside for like Vince to go over stuff. You're just supposed to be ready in case like Val Venus wants to call you in the ring to teach Dan Rodemeyer how to do a hip toss or drop an elbow, because they're basically hired this guy who's 7 foot tall and they're teaching him while he's on the road. Like, so like, nice. Instead of just having him developmental working every night, they're like, hey, we'll get him on the road, and then we'll have Val Venus basically run a training class with this guy, and then we'll have extras get the shit beat out of him and take legit fucking moves from him. But speaking of legit moves, so it was me and Team Action, North Carolina Indie Tag Team Sensations, Bobby Houston. It was us and like a few other people.
I think I saw Jack Swagger in there. Maybe Heath Slater.
Well, let me get to that for sure. That's an interesting story as well. We'll dovetail off that. So they are also getting developmental people there to do some of these extra spots, just get them on the road. Like that's what they'll do. They'll have developmental guys go on the road for 2 or 3 weeks just to kind of get acclimated with the locker room and get used to the guys. But they won't let those guys dressed in the main locker room. They throw those guys in the extras locker room. So I was in the extras locker room with, if you remember, Jay Bradley or Bradley J, whatever, Brad Bradley from IWA Mid-South, and Jack Swagger. Now, Jake Hager in the Inner Circle now. He was there, and this is before he was ever on TV. They were the two guys there, and of course they're buddied up the whole time, but you know, Jack Swagger was super cool, just like chill, talk to us, even though clearly there's money just dripping off of him. He's got that Oklahoma wrestling background. He's yay tall. He's good looking. He can fucking wrestle. He's nothing but a fucking future in him. But he's just cool as shit with us extra guys. And, you know, we're just there. And, of course, they make the decision in the afternoon that, hey, we're going to have a big pull apart with Umaga and Cena. And, obviously, they had the two big guys, Jay Bradley, Bradley J, and Jack Swagger. And of course, me, I'm kind of sizable, but then like Team Action and Bobby Houston were not necessarily on the bigger side. So like, we need some more bigger guys. And I can't remember who else was doing extra talent, but like, hey, I know some bigger guys than like Brody Chase, who lived in South Carolina, and some other guys like, hey, I can get some guys here real soon, and I can tell them to get some black slacks, and they'd give us like black security shirts to run out with. And we had to pick up the black security shirts from Magic, which was basically their set designer. Magic, basically guy, he could make an arena look like a restaurant. It was basically like, that's what they called it, Magic. And so I had to get the security shirts from him and tuck those in. And then of course we all got to do a walkthrough on how this is all going to go down. And this is like, they would broke it down step by step by step. Like, hey, you guys going to fight. And then they go out here, then send security. And then they would time us running out. Yeah. Like, how many seconds does it take for us to run out? And then, like, hey, I think they even like broke down the order of like, it was very detailed oriented. And so they got us all together, and I'll never forget, we were like all in the ring. It was like Umaga. I think Cena was off talking with Vince, working his way down, because Cena had to do a lot of stuff because they were about ready to leave for tribute to the troops in a few days. So he was doing a lot of media appearances, and Vince was doing some media stuff. And so, like, it was just Umaga and all his extras that are just basically going to do this pull apart. And basically the whole sense was that Umaga was going to, like, knock all these people, and then, like, there's going to be this pull apart. Because they just did a whole thing where the whole locker room ran out. So they need as many guys as possible. So we had some more people on the way. So we're all just kind of standing there. This is, like, my first extra talent. We're all kind of, like, you know, don't know how to do. We're just trying to be cool. And we've been trying to stay out of the way. We've played it nice. And Umaga just, like, he's just got his hands in his pockets, standing in the ring, looking at all of us. And he's just like, hey, just want to let you guys know, I don't fucking pull any punches. I'm real. So just fucking deal with it.
Oh, okay.
Like, basically just said, like, hey, man, I'm not going to fucking take care of you. I mean, I don't remember exactly his exact words, but basically his point was, I don't give a fuck about you. If you get fucking hurt, I don't give a shit. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you say it to my face.
Yeah,
as opposed
right. Yeah.
As opposed to me finding the fuck out.
That's a little something.
So I'm like, fuck, man. And it's like, all right, well, this is going to be what it's going to be. We got to do this pull apart. So, like, obviously, like, when we step through it, I'm just like, all right, well, I got to get to Cena. Like, I hopefully Cena doesn't have this sane fucking mentality. So in my thought process, when I run out, I'm going to try and find John Cena and stick close to him. And so, like, they're like, hey, it's going to get crazy. Just kind of keep your head on a swivel. Watch out. It just, we wanted it to look frantic. We wanted it to look disarray. We wanted it to look real.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just like, hey, be careful when this is going to happen. Umaga is going to beat everybody up and just fucking deal with it. All right, cool. So we all have to stand in gorilla when whatever match is going on, whatever happens or whatever. And I'll never forget, like, I think Umaga was out first or something, like, or Umaga was already out there, or he's going to show up later. But I remember all of us just kind of sitting out there. It's Raw's happening. And that's the first time I'm going to go out in front of an audience like this, Monday Night Raw. I'm going to be on camera. This is fucking awesome. But at the same time, too, this guy's just said, I don't give a fuck about you. I don't want to hurt you. And I'll never forget John Cena, just like before he went out. I think it was a match that he had.
John Cena and Chris Masters were doing a like master lock match.
Okay.
It was the challenge bullshit where Cena said he could break the Master's Lock, that old
Okay.
game.
Yeah, but I remember before we went out, Umaga wasn't there. And John's just like, I'll see, like, some of us were nervous because of whatever the fuck Umaga said. And Cena just took the time to go, hey guys, just have fun. He was like cracking jokes too, like just this weird
Cool.
joke. He was clearly thinking about other stuff, but he was cracking jokes. And all of a sudden he goes, hey guys, just want to let you know, I'm not a real tough guy. Like, I'm a TV tough guy, so take care of me out there. And then his music hits, and he like a rock star. He's just like, yeah, pretty much. And he goes out, and he's like, like he's a superhero. But like right before he went out, he had enough self-awareness to look at all of us. He goes, hey guys, just want to let you know, I'm not a tough guy. I'm a TV tough guy. These are all show muscles. And then all of a sudden his music hit, and he goes, excuse me. And then like to have the self-awareness like that just makes him, I see why everybody's ever talking about him, he's the coolest guy ever. So we go out there, we hit all of our cues exactly. I'm keeping my head on a fucking swivel. I'm trying to find John Cena as much as possible, but he's disappeared, and all I got to do, and I'm standing there, whatever. So like, I got to get on Umaga. So I'm jumping on Umaga. I'm getting knocked off. It's frantic. And at one point in time, John Cena jumped off the commentator's table, which was not discussed. Like, the big match John fucking called that shit on the fly. None of us were expecting to catch a dive from the Golden Goose. So like, he fucking did that. And then it came to the point where Umaga started punching all of us and was supposed to leave us all laying, including eventual world heavyweight champion Jack Swagger. And he was just punching everybody, and I'll never forget, like, it was almost like we're all supposed to feed in a line. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm standing, so I'm gonna have to fucking take one.
Yeah.
And I was like, and right in front of me, though, was TJ Maxx. And I'll never forget this as long as I live, and I think you can clearly see it on TV. He takes a punch from Umaga. His head goes a good 3 feet away from his body. Like, I've never seen anybody's head get detached from their body and then snap back and then collapse. I saw that and I go, oh fuck, TJ Maxx is dead. Because he's a smaller guy. I'm like, Umaga just punched him and murdered him in front of me. Now I have to take a punch.
No, I'm gonna die.
So Umaga's rearing back, and it was all this is happening in slow motion. It's one of those things where your life flashes before your eyes and everything kind of like pulls into focus. And as Umaga rears back and comes around, I notice he sticks out one of his fucking fingers. So it's not like a flush knuckle, flush knuckle. So he's sticking one out. And I've always heard the story about old timers. They do that when they want to get color hard way. Like Brad Thomas got color hard way from Dr. Tom, and he basically stuck one of his fingers out to bust the guy open. So basically, Umaga was trying to fucking bust me open.
Jesus.
Now, at the same time, too, this is all happening very fast. I might be seeing things, but from what I saw in this moment, if I was to testify in a court of law, what I saw was him trying to fucking stick his fucking knuckle out to fucking bust me open and to fucking hurt me and fuck me up for real. Which, by the way, I think is a legitimate thing to claim because the motherfucker said he didn't give a fuck about me like 2 hours earlier.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the only punches I've ever pre-bumped. That's where the fucking fight or flight came in, and I fucking just got out, bumped out of the way, and kind of turned myself just enough. There was contact enough, or might not be. I don't know. I think they cut it anyways, because Kevin Dunn, anytime somebody throws a punch, he fucking takes the wide angle, whatever. That's what they fucking do.
They get your drop in the close-up. You fall down pretty good, just like falling like a sack of potatoes after the punch.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I was like, I'm not getting back up because I don't want that motherfucker to touch me. But luckily, I fucking watch out for my fucking self because he wasn't watching out for me. And then we get to the back and it was what it was and it was cool and we did it. But at the same time too, I just kind of always I always remember that because he could have been cool, like, hey guys, things are getting a little crazy. This gimmick, I gotta go full out, so I'm gonna apologize now. But he just basically said, no, I don't give a fuck about you. You're probably gonna get hurt. Like, that's how he fucking treated me. And I know I'm an extra. I know I'm a fucking nobody. But also, too, eventual world champion Jack Swagger was one of those people he fucking said that to. So, I mean, I know a lot of people have had better memories of him and have had better stories with him, but that's my fucking Umaga story, and that's how he fucking treated me. And as I've said before, if you are nice to me, the guy who is at the bottom of the totem pole, then you are probably a nice fucking person in wrestling, because you never know. Once you leave here, I might be the guy who picks you up at the airport. Exactly. I might be the guy who has to go get you food. So I may be the guy that drives you to the hotel. I may be the guy that you're wrestling. I may be the guy that lets a family member in because you're here or whatever. Or kayfabes your wife while you're talking to your girlfriend. What? I may be that guy. So don't fuck with me. You know, I'm the janitor from the Breakfast Club. You see these keys? I can get in any room I fucking want. So just be fucking nice to me. That's the thing with that, and I don't know, it's just one of those things. I was going to go somewhere about treating everybody properly, because you gotta watch out for people like that. We all got to look out for each other at the end of the day. Everybody's got their different places, so you don't have to give everybody the same amount of respect. I get that, I understand that, but you can still treat me like a fucking human being.
Once Umaga was done taking out the Man Scout Jake Manning, it was spinner belts out for Harrenby. Cena and Umaga's first big meeting would be at a pay-per-view called New Year's Revolution.
I didn't remember that this was actually his first loss. And just a quick roll-up. I mean, Jake could speak on this, but I assume they get him in a quick roll-up so that he's, kind of tricked into losing or taken by surprise rather than actually losing, beaten down.
Yeah, I mean, that's the psychology. It's like, here, this beast, and also you're creating this fucking monster for the fucking Golden Goose. That's like going, like, classic. Well, I don't think it's right that Kamala lost to Hulk Hogan. Like, no, we brought Kamala in to fucking lose to Hulk Hogan. Like, that's how this shit works. And that's what they were doing with John Cena. The reason why Umaga exists is for this particular moment. Nobody can beat Umaga. I mean, Kane is basically Hacksaw Jim Duggan in this scenario. He's the setup man. He's setting it up. Former world champion, loses to Umaga, and then here we go. Can John Cena do it? Oh, it's a quick roll-up. Oh, no, there's more to it than that. The 1, 2, 3 doesn't matter. It's a quick loss. Umaga doesn't lose any steam. Yeah, sure, it's his first loss, but fucking, it was a loss that just kind of fucking happened. Like, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose ones eventually. That's how this works, and and then of course it builds up to the next match, which we'll get into right now probably.
I just want to point out the real heat in this whole feud is Umaga cost John Cena a match against Kevin Federline, and yes, Kevin Federline has a win over John Cena. I just felt that needed to get in the episode.
Oh, and fuck that. Fuck Kevin Federline.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Because he covered Cena nonchalantly and just put like an elbow on him. No, fuck that. Cover that. I don't know who the fucking producer was for that. They should be fucking fired.
But he hit him with the spinny belt, Jake. He's
out. I don't fucking give a shit. Kevin, I don't care. I don't care if you fucking shot John Cena. You don't fucking, especially John Cena at this particular time. We're trying to build fucking Superman, and you're gonna fucking Kevin Federline just lay a fucking elbow on him and sit on him. Kevin, him like a regular fucking person. You can fucking get up and do whatever pose you want, but goddamn pin him like a regular fucking person. Like a regular fucking wrestler should. That is top 5. One of the things that fucking pisses me off about professional wrestling. Not just celebrity appearances. No. This is top 5 things that should have never fucking happened in professional wrestling, and the Benoit tragedy is on that top 5 as well. Like I incorporate that with on that things that have never should have fucking happened. What Benoit did and Kevin Federline pinning John Cena, all in the top 5, maybe even top 3.
I'm glad I brought that up. I'm really glad I brought that up.
Following this, manager Estrada would downplay it, saying it was a fluke, trying to goat him into another match at the Royal Rumble, which would end up being a last man standing match. And man, for a John Cena match, I know we aren't quite to the squeaky clean PG days quite yet, but this is a brutal fucking match in spots.
This match is fucking great. This is big match John to the
this is
to
so
fucking
good.
great. This is probably a top 10 best John Cena matches. Like, I remember watching this thing and just being like, holy fucking shit. And I just was like, man, the WWE is fucking doing this match. Like, this is at a point, like I said, pushing like, we're this and we're sanitized and we're more like this. But this right here, this fucking match, fuck yes, inject this into my veins. Like, this is what fucking John Cena, this right here. The fact that John Cena can do this, then also wrestle Shawn Michaels for almost a fucking hour on Raw because Randy Orton fucked up a hotel room in Europe. Like that,
Yeah.
like he can do that. He can then also do the Firefly Funhouse match, which these are all case in points of 3 entirely different things that John Cena is able to do and achieve and be successful at. Like, this right here, he can get down and fucking dirty if he wants to. He can have a fucking wrestling clinic with Shawn Michaels. Not the one at WrestleMania. That one's okay. But the one he had on Raw, that was incredible.
Yeah, it's like
And
45 minutes.
further fucking proof they built Umaga just for this specific moment right fucking here.
Dude, the spot where John Cena gets the metal ring steps and throws them from inside the ring to the outside and smacks the fuck out of Umaga. He blocks him. And he gets his hands up good, but it's literally a true, oh shit, that could just crush his skull.
Well, see, that's the thing that I just want to be as fair to Umaga as possible. He can give a fuck about me. But I would like to believe that he had enough respect for John and was like, hey, John, whatever the fuck you want to do to me, fucking bring it. Like, and made this match so good and sacrifice his body for someone like John. Like, I'm sure John could do an entire podcast on how awesome and amazing of a person Umaga is. I unfortunately am not that. I'm not John Cena, so that's why I want to be as fair as possible, because clearly Umaga was giving enough to someone like John Cena. He was that to him, but obviously John Cena has a lot of people being nice to him, and
that is a good point,
and rightfully so. And if you're not nice to him, you're not gonna be in this company for very long.
Just the color that John gets in this when he blades, I mean, it's just the way it streams down his face, the visual, oh man, it's just fucking gorgeous.
About 20 minutes into this match, it's clear that Umaga is too tough to go down, and Cena has too much hustle, loyalty, and respect to go down. I don't know if the viewers at home can see the shirt. Hustle, loyalty, respect.
Oh.
So Estrada gets desperate. He takes off the top rope, hands it to Umaga. Cena ends up with it and puts the rope around Umaga's neck, puts him into STF, and he eventually chokes him out. He can't answer the 10 count, and this is a real loss for Umaga.
Yep.
Following the Cena feud, they'd give him a couple matches to rebuild on. Umaga beat Val Venus. He beat Balls Mahoney. Before getting into this stupid goddamn bullshit that we have to fucking talk about now for WrestleMania 23.
The Battle of the Billionaires.
And, one billionaire and one guy who managed to bankrupt a fucking casino. Just to go off on a tangent real quick, I get how people were duped by Trump. I get why he was like, I'll give you money, even though he only gave money to his rich friends. And if you were a coal miner in West Virginia, you're still poor. But I get how he tricked them. I get that if you're a hate-filled bigot, you're like, well, this dude's a hate-filled bigot. I'll clearly vote for him. Like, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is how Vince McMahon looked at this water-damaged basketball with his gooey draping meat flaps for a neck. Someone who on their best day is a fucking sleazebag. Someone who is a confirmed, documented, racist rapist. How did Vince look at this guy and go, God damn it, pal, there's my baby face? What about Donald Trump ever has read as good guy? Literally, his entire life, nothing.
You gotta drop dollars on the fans so they'll cheer him. And then you gotta put 2 sexy ladies on him. And for pro wrestling, I think that's all you need to become a babyface.
I mean, it worked for Okada. But here, like we could have an entire podcast about views about Trump,
and we are now.
I disagree with the man wholeheartedly. I won't use the strong language that Nick will, because I feel like to people who are his supporters, that's like white noise to them, and I don't get through them. There are certain things that his supporters will not fucking listen to. So if I'm going to talk to a supporter of theirs, my goal is to get you on my side, which is the sane side, because you have gone off the deep end. That's how I feel about it. You're not seeing the forest through the trees, and that is my opinion on it. So if I come across somebody who is MAGA through and through, I try to talk with you rationally in the hopes that I could speak some reason and some common sense into you, and then we can come closer to you. So I try to avoid rants like Nicholas has just gone on, but I agree with 100% of what he says. Just to let you know, that's how I feel about it. But I will use my words differently in the hopes that I could bring somebody over at least to the middle. I may not be able to get you to the left, but I will get you to at least the middle. But here is the thing about I will also posit about Trump and explain to why he was the babyface, because we are where we are right now. And you're like, how is he a babyface? And we look at it now. Let us not forget, at one point in time, everybody loved O.J. Simpson. Like, let's just not forget that. And when you see
Naked Gun, man.
I know it's on recently on our cable package. I'm like, oh, that's right, we loved O.J. Simpson. So there was a time where, like, I think John Mulaney said it best, is that Trump is basically what a homeless person thinks a rich person is. Like, that's basically exactly what we all think is of success, even though if you delve into his details, that is incorrect. If you want to know my structured opinions, and let's take all politics, everything that's happened over the last 4 years, and even the couple leading up to it, and everything that's happened probably even the last decade, let's put everything to the side. Just watch the 30 for 30 on the USFL, and that will tell you everything
so good.
You need to know about that man. If he's ever in a pinch, he will sell you down the river. He will not take responsibility for any of his actions. And when he is holding the highest office in the land, that is very concerning. So that is always my go-to on explaining the issues with Trump, is just watch the 30 for 30 on the USFL, and that tells you everything you fucking need to know about that man and how he is not a good president.
Well, before his weak leadership got 150,000 Americans killed and 28 million evicted from their homes here in a couple weeks, he first had to deal with Vince at Wrestlemania 23.
I would just like to point out, rewatching all this stuff, I remember Vince being good leading up to this stuff, but goddamn, he is so entertaining. It kind of blew me away. He's on a totally different level leading up in this angle. It's totally worth revisiting if you get bored.
Also important to point out that as Vince's representative, Umaga got awarded an Intercontinental title shot at Jeff Hardy, which he won immediately the same night, and that is Umaga's first gold in the Federation. So we got Stone Cold in this match as the special guest referee, a man of little hair. We have Bobby Lashley in this match, also a bald guy. Jake Manning as a guy who rocks the shiny dome on a regular basis. How do you feel about the stipulation of getting shaved bald being like the worst outcome ever?
I know it's the weirdest fucking thing, but at the same time too, we can say it's dumb, and everybody is talking about it being dumb. But once again, we have to rewind back and we have to put everything aside with Trump when we discuss this. Like everything we know about Trump, every political cartoonist, every comedian, everybody does a parody of him. What is the first thing when they're putting it together, when they're drawing him, when they're trying to do an impersonation of him, when they're trying to do a cartoon of him? What is the first thing that they focus on when they're trying to put that together? You focus on the hair.
Yep.
So obviously the hair is such a thing that obviously that is essentially the focus. And like seeing Vince McMahon lose a stipulation, which everybody, I would say 100% of the people thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like there was no way.
There was no way.
Like we all know Vince McMahon is going to look like a fucking moron, because if anything, Vince McMahon revels in looking like a fucking moron than a fucking genius. Good. He loves it, and everybody kind of like, okay, well, we'll at least see Vince look like a fucking moron. Yeah. But if you were to take those two players out of the game and the stipulation between Dolph Ziggler and fucking Roman Reigns, and it's hair versus hair.
Yeah.
That's a bit more like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
It's not that fucking bad, you know? And that's too, like, usually when they get to a point where it's hair versus hair, the person's going bald anyways. Like, having Shawn Michaels, like, 7 years ago doing a hair versus hair match, like, yeah, bro, you probably should shave that shit. Matter of fact, you putting in a ponytail has made it fucking worse. So let's stop that.
Oh, well, speaking of hair versus hair, be sure to check out patreon.com/TimboPod for me and Micah's little hair versus hair match. Battle of the definitely not billionaires. The actual match here, man, Umaga does a forward roll, like, out of the ring spot. But you know how normally you, like, support yourself on the apron as you tumble to the outside? He misses it and just fucking splats. Like, it had to have, like, knocked the breath out of him, at least. It sounded brutal.
When you see it, you're like, yep, it's WrestleMania. They're just trying to kill themselves.
Umaga starts fighting with Stone Cold a little bit. He hits him with a spike. We get Shane McMahon in this match, who comes in secretly wearing a ref shirt. Fucking Shane McMahon hits a coast to coast wearing like business casual. That was pretty nuts. But Stone Cold wakes up in time to make sure Lashley gets a fair shake and the win. And then they shave Vince McMahon bald.
Poor Vince.
And also, too, we forgot to bring up the whole time how fucking Vince McMahon pronounced Umaga. Umaga! The most over the fucking top. Like, you hired a guy and made him a manager to say Umaga, and he wasn't even a fucking fourth of what Vince McMahon was. Like, they broke the rule on, like, yeah, we're never gonna have managers ever again. Like, nah, Umaga needs a manager. We just need you to talk. Now, don't get me wrong, Estrada did a fantastic job. He was going against the Babe Ruth of fucking ridiculous vocalizations. At the same time, too, like, man, you couldn't even keep up with that. Like, just that, ooh, Umaga! Like, it sears in my head, and that's what I think of.
I don't know. I mean, we got to bring up Regal. Umanga is pretty fucking good. I thought it was a one-time fuck-up, but Regal said it every single time.
They call cookies biscuits and shit. It's chaos over there.
Yeah, water closets, a toilet. What the fuck?
Boris Johnson and shit. Who fucking knows?
A couple weeks after Mania, WWE did a Raw in Italy, April 16th, and a still very bald Vince McMahon still had heat with Bobby Lashley. He was also still palling around with Umaga, and they would do an open challenge for Umaga's Intercontinental Championship. They challenge everyone from the back to come out and fight. No one does. So they asked the crowd. I wish UFC did this. Imagine some dude in an Affliction shirt just getting decapitated by Anderson Silva.
Oh, God. I would pay money. So much money.
But a young Italian lad by the name of Santino Marella steps into the ring and accepts the challenge, and this is his debut.
Which, you know, Santino had a legit fighting background, but he wanted to do more comedy. And there are multiple times where they're like, we want to do something ethnic with you. We're not for sure yet, but we're gonna, like, they had him one time. They flew him in, like, typical WWE, like, hey, we may want you to be Russian, so come in and be ready to be Russian on Monday Night Raw. I think they might have been like called like, hey, do you know Russian? And of course, like a great fucking pro wrestler said yes when he clearly didn't. So he had to learn Russian on the flight to Monday Night Raw. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be Russian on Monday Night Raw. And he gets there and they're like, yeah, we've changed our mind. Sorry, just hang out, eat catering. And then they flew him back. So then, like, they theoretically could have flown him to Italy. And, like, they're like, hey, can you give an Italian accent? Know some Italian? Can you do that? And they could have done that and then did what they did when they flew him in to be Russian. And they're like, no, we changed our mind. You just enjoy this wonderful caterer we got in Italy. You know, like, that's what they could have done. Because they're a fucking company like that. They're just like, yeah, we want to do this. And they get this idea on Saturday. And it's a wonderful idea. They make all the travel arrangements. And then Monday, like, nah, we don't feel like it. Sorry. So that flight, that hotel, that per diem time, the fact that they were just on call, and the fuckery around mentally, like, all of that fucking shit just never fucking ceases to amaze me.
Santino is fighting with Umaga, kind of holding his own at first, but Vince and Shane get involved. This brings out Bobby Lashley, who takes a chair from Vince and clocks Umaga, hits him with a spear. He puts Marella on top, and Santino wins the Intercontinental Championship. Jake, just comedy guy to comedy guy. How do you feel about Santino?
You know what? He was always super cool. The only thing I remember so much about Santino Obviously he got hot real fast, and he was kind of like a big deal, and people were like really crazy for him, and like he really got over, like really kind of proof that a comic guy can get over at a high level like that. But I always remembered like The Office never liking him. And like some of the old school guys like Charlie Haas and the guys that kind of like really, worked hard and was always showing up and doing fucking 500 Hindu squats before working out in the ring, before going on Raw, before getting told all you got is a heat match for 3 minutes. Be like, just working hard, just trying to prove The Office I want to be here. And like Santino would get there and they'd be like, hey, Santino want to get in here and wrestle with some of these extras and stuff like that. And Santino's like, yeah, sure, let me go get changed. And then I wouldn't see him again until he was on TV. Like, he's just like, why the fuck am I doing this? I got my job. I'm on TV. Why don't I just focus on this? So like, I kind of like, as a guy that was kind of like, oh no, work hard and show me you want to work hard. But now that I'm a bit smarter, I'm like, no, that was the right call to do. Like, just disappear when they wanted you to do hard work. Everybody that's successful does that. As soon as the hard work comes around, they all disappear and they do something that focuses on themselves.
Well, continuing the Umaga, Vince, Bobby Lashley drama at April 29th Backlash, Umaga, Vince, and Shane McMahon wrestled Lashley for his ECW World Heavyweight Championship in a handicap match where Vince McMahon would get the pin and become the greatest ECW champion of all time.
And I would just like to say that Vince in a do-rag, dark sweatshirt, black jeans, fingerless gloves while wearing the ECW title is the best Vince look there is. Much like blue jeans, British Bulldog, the best there ever is.
Umaga would continue with the feud going into Judgment Day, where the McMahons and Umaga would take on Lashley again for the ECW championship. This time, the King of Extreme, Vince McMahon, is going to lose when Lashley kind of gets the jump on everyone. He pins Shane in just over a minute, but afterwards, Vince gets on the mic and says since Vince didn't get pinned, Lashley doesn't win the belt. Right. They take this into One Night Stand in a street fight with Umaga trying to help out, but this time Lashley again shakes off all the interference, hits a spear, and gets his ECW title back. In June, Umaga got back to his Santino Marella problem and the Intercontinental Championship. They met at Vengeance. Umaga was in control of the match, but he ended up getting himself DQ'd when he would not break the ref's 5 count and kept pummeling Marella. But following this match, we get a SummerSlam promo that promoted the show getting taken over by the guys from Jackass, and this led to an incident with Steve-O. The Jackass guys were in the ring and they were going to get beat up, but the issue they run into here is Umaga hits Steve-O with a splash, but Steve-O, obviously not a trained pro wrestler, he's still kind of wiggling around, moving. Umaga takes this as a huge disrespect to him and the business and lays in an elbow on Steve-O.
Oh,
and Steve-O says, I've been hit in the head enough to black out only a few times, and this is one of them. So Umaga roughs up Steve-O here, and it's not the best situation.
No. This is the best situation. This is where I want to be fair to Umaga. He treated me like shit. He also treated me exactly the way that Steve-O should have been treated in the situation. Because I remember seeing this fucking live, and Steve-O was fucking laughing.
Oh, no.
At
okay.
Umaga. He was fucking laughing at him, like after he was getting beat up, like, haha, this is so funny. Ha, 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 look, I'm getting beat up like a fake fucking wrestler. And Umaga, doing the right goddamn fucking thing, let him know, like, oh, fake, fuck you, I will fucking hurt you. If anything, Steve-O got off fucking easy with Umaga. If it wasn't national television, he didn't have fucking cameras everywhere, and the threat of a fucking lawsuit, like if this is Bill Watts' territory, he could have murdered him in the ring, and he would have got a race. Like that's
I thought Bill Watts just walked in the room.
Well, pro wrestling's my goddamn religion. You know what I'm saying? And somebody's gonna fucking insult it like that and not treat it with the utmost of fucking respect when we've given you an opportunity to promote your movie and we're gonna co-promote, we're gonna do good things, and you're gonna laugh at somebody? That's how I fucking feel about it. No, granted, my opinions on professional wrestling are far different than Steve-O's, but no, I saw this live and I was like, good for Umaga. So that's why I want to be as fair as possible. Because this would be the time for you to be that person. And sometimes the person that does this to Steve-O is also the person that tells me, hey, I don't give a fuck about you and I'm going to hurt you.
You got to protect the business.
I just like to be fair to Steve-O. He admitted he was on a lot of drugs at the time, so, I mean, come on. But yeah, anybody listening to this, please go back and watch it. The forearm he hit Steve-O with is fucking MMA caliber heavyweight, blast him right in the side of the head. There's even a reaction video where Pontius and Steve-O watch it to give you a little insight. And he's kind of like, yeah, I was kind of on a bunch of drugs, and yeah, I kind of laughed when I shouldn't have.
The Jackass SummerSlam crossover episode actually would not happen, but it wasn't because of this. It was because Mr. Ol' Canadian redacted guy also got a bit too violent, and Jackass did not want to be associated.
One match around this time I gotta give a lot of love to that you should check out. I'd probably say is my second favorite Umaga match. Jeff Hardy versus him at Great American Bash 2007. It's a 12-minute match. It's a great example of just monster heel versus a babyface and his comeback and how the crowd, I forgot how fucking over Jeff Hardy was at a particular time. This crowd was fucking molten lava. JR is losing his mind. There's a near fall with the Swanton bomb that I thought the fucking roof was going to explode. It's just, they nail every little moment of kind of what you should do in those type of matches. And I can't recommend it enough.
It is fantastic. Like Jeff Hardy, when he has chemistry with people, it's incredible to see. And him and Umaga just tore it the fuck down. It's one of those things that, you know, Jeff's like, come on, bring it, man. You can't hurt fucking Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, right.
Like, legend with Jeff that nobody ever fucking talks about is there was a time where I think Jeff got hurt much later in his career, like about this time or a few years later. Something happened with Jeff. He had to have a surgery, and they're like, hey, let's just do a full body scan. Which you never want to do on a pro wrestler anyways, but you definitely don't want to do that on Jeff Hardy.
All right.
So when they gave him the full body scan, because that was a bit more prevalent, they found out that Jeff had a broken back.
Oh, shit.
And like at some point in time, it never got it fixed. He had a broken back, and it like healed up, but like he had a broken back and all these things wrong with him. And the people that did the scan were like, how the fuck have you been able to walk all these years? There's no way you should be alive right now. How many car accidents have you had? So there is that urban legend of Jeff Hardy just being fucking indestructible. And I'm sure when Umaga was like, hey, I don't give a fuck about you, Jeff's like, cool, I don't either.
Aww.
On July 2nd, Umaga would get another shot at Santino, and this time he would abide by the rules, hit a Samoan spike, and win the Intercontinental Championship for the second time. He'd take that into a jackassless 2007 SummerSlam, taking on Mr. Kennedy and Carlito. Kennedy hits Carlito with a forward roll Samoan drop, which is cultural appropriation. So Umaga breaks up the pin, spikes him, retains his title. Then another match with Jeff Hardy would be a long TV match on September 3rd's Raw, where Umaga was on the top and a groggy Jeff gets up enough energy to bounce off the ropes with Umaga on the top turnbuckle. He tumbles down and Jeff gets a quick surprise pin and wins the Intercontinental Championship from Umaga. Then we get to another Vince McMahon feud that Umaga gets sucked into. Vince was beefing with Triple H, mostly because he made fun of Vince for Hornswoggle being his kid, I guess. The same night Umaga lost to Jeff Hardy, Carlito was in the back in the locker room with him. He said that Trips was laughing at him. Vince sets up a handicap match with them. Umaga again is going to not listen to the ref 5 count. He's going to get DQ'd, but they keep on attacking Triple H. He eventually gets out of it, grabs the sledgehammer, and beats up Umaga with it. Trips and Umaga would take their feud into No Mercy, in what would end up being another title shot for Umaga. Earlier that night, Triple H beat Randy Orton for the championship, then later had a match with Umaga, turning it into a title match. During his match, Jerry Lawler's like, has there ever been 3 champions in one night? And JR says no. Bret Hart, Yokozuna, Terry fucking Bollea, WrestleMania 9. Suck it, Jim Ross. Anyways, Trips wins with a pedigree. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
There's a great bit you really should check out leading up to Umaga and Triple H's Cyber Sunday match. It was, remember back in the day when you could actually vote on what was going to happen? I don't know if that was shoot or a work. Jake, do you know if that was a shoot or a work with the Cyber Sunday shit?
Well, if you listen to Conrad Thompson's podcast, who's listening to this podcast, some of it was, and then also too, like some of them, like the options are so clearly like
You're right.
and also too, like they had like pre-voting. Like, obviously, they're coming in like, hey, right now it's at 60% for this, it's 20% for this, and 10. So obviously,
Yeah.
it's gonna end up being like this one that's like 65% right now. And so it's like they kind of already knew coming in what it was gonna be, and then they revealed the results, and so it's all real. But like they all knew what it was, and they kind of set it up so like it ended up being this. But it's like one of those things like it could go either way. Either one of these would be a great conclusion to whatever the story, or a great addition to the story.
Mm-hmm.
So either or of these is fine.
In 10/15/2007 Raw, Vince is trying to set up the Cyber Sunday. So they're teasing the 3 potential matches, which is a street fight, a first blood match, and a steel cage match. So for everyone to get a taste, so before they vote, Vince brings out Umaga, and he brings out enhancement talent. I think he's from the UK, called Andy Simmons, who then proceeds to get the living shit beat out of him by Umaga. He wins, and then that's over. And then Vince is like, oh, poor kid, poor kid. And then, of course, they have to test out the first blood match, so Vince shoves Andy Simmons back in there again, who Umaga beats the shit out of one more time, and he bleeds. I think he had a blood packet in his mouth, that's what it looked like to me. And then after that, Vince is like, get him out of here, he's hurt, poor kid, poor kid. But wait, we have a steel cage match. And then they lower the fucking steel cage, and Umaga throws poor, beaten, crippled Andy Simmons back in the ring and literally throws him the fuck into the cage so many times, it's painful to watch. It's just a great monster-creating slight murder with this poor enhancement talent dude who I hope got paid a shit ton of money, and Vince at his most sadistic best, setting up the whole Triple H Umaga match at Cyber Sunday. Jake, do you happen to know Andy Simmons, UK enhancement talent dude?
I would tread lightly on anybody from the UK indie scene, my friend. I don't know. I'll have to check a list that's online and see if he fucking deserved this or not. But yes, I am aware of Andy Simmons. So when you were saying poor kid, poor kid, poor kid, I was like, I should have brought my phone in here because there is a fucking list that I should cross-reference on to see if he is a fucking poor guy. So thank you for triggering me, my friend. So you want to talk about your car a little bit longer too? How about that, Micah?
Street fight ended up winning. It's a really damn good brawl. Triple H spears Umaga through the entrance ramp set. Umaga does the whole running across the commentating booth into a splash, putting him through the third table. It ends with Umaga getting his skull crashed in by the sledgehammer and dying. Nick?
At Survivor Series, Umaga's team took on Triple H's team. It's Trips, Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio, and Kane going in a man down against Mr. Kennedy, MVP, Finley, and Big Daddy 5. Despite the odds against them, Trips' team wins. Umaga's the last man standing, though. He gets hit with a dual pedigree swanton combo, taking the L. I think that's enough to do it. And then we kind of get into, the puttering out of Umaga's career here. WrestleMania 24, he'd take on Batista in a battle of brand supremacy. Umaga repping Raw, Batista repping SmackDown. And despite almost botching the living hell out of the Batista bomb at the end, Batista he got him up, but man, he almost killed himself in the process.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know if you know this or not. This was actually a battle of guys who beat the fuck out of Jake Manning. Because Batista also gave me a stiff fucking elbow and a pull apart one time. Now, granted, Batista probably had every right to, because what happened was a big pull apart, and some people were supposed to go with Cena, some people went with Batista. I felt safe with Batista as well, because I was like, normally in any instance I would stick next to John, he was safe, so I went with Batista, and I pulled Batista off the pile, and I thought I was pulling Batista off the pile with 3 other people. Come to find out, I was the only person that pulled Dave Batista away from John Cena, and you can clearly see it on camera. Me, Jake Manning, indie wrestler, being the only person who can stop Machine Gun Dave. And Batista thought the same too. He thought there were 3 other people that pulling him apart. And then when Dave realized, what the fuck, this guy fucking pulled me apart? I needed 3 guys to fucking, no, fuck this. And he gave me an elbow right at the base of my fucking skull. And it really fucking, it'd be illegal in MMA. God. It would have been an illegal, it hurt.
Crippling you.
It fucking hurt a lot. I was dizzy. I might have had a concussion from it because I almost vomited in the ring. It was really fucking hard. It hurt for a couple days after too. Here's the difference with old Big Dave. I feel like
Big Dave.
Dave's cool enough that if I ever met him and I told him this story, because that's my favorite thing to do, is like, hey, remember when you were shitty to me? I feel like Big Dave is cool enough to be like, hey man, sorry about that. 10 years later, he would tell me I'm sorry. Like, I feel like he'd probably be wearing a leather jacket too and like skinny jeans, but I guarantee he would give me like at least an I'm sorry. So this was a battle of who fucked up Jake Manning the most in a pull apart.
I like Dave on Twitter the most because he does not give a shit about talking as much shit about anything.
But also, too, here's a key of Dave. Like, if you forget all the results of all his matches, look back in some of it, like in his prime, you can tell when he's jobbing and not. He would always have less spectacular gear. He'd wear all black when he's doing the job. He would also not look into the camera when he makes his entrance.
God damn it.
Yeah, you could fucking see it. I remember one WrestleMania, we were all like, yeah, he's definitely doing the job. And then we were all waiting. He did his entrance. He didn't look in the camera and like, yep, he's fucking losing. And sure as shit, he did. That's what happened.
What a bunch of shit.
So on June 23rd, 2008, Umaga got drafted over to SmackDown, but unfortunately he would tear his PCL at a live event in Johnson City, Tennessee that August, which brutal injury for any sport, double brutal when you're 300 pounds.
Triple brutal when you're doing that in Johnson City, Tennessee.
He got a couple promos hyping up his return for January 30th, 09. Back to SmackDown. New entrance theme. He beat up Jimmy Wang Yang in a short match. And then Scotty Goldman would lose a squash match to the Samoan Bulldozer February 20th, 09. You can find that online.
If you don't know, that is old Colt Cabana, which he actually wrestled Umaga's first ever TV match under the very scintillating name Chris Guy.
Umaga would take some more time off TV, a couple months. I'm not sure if he was hurt. Maybe that PCL was bothering him, but he would come back for his last WWE feud with Mr. CM Punk. He would stop Punk's attempts to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase, and that would lead to a match at 2009's Judgment Day in Rosemont, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. So Punk is obviously going to lose because that is Vince's favorite thing for some reason, to make guys lose in their hometown. Following this, Umaga would attack Punk with a strap, which led to their rematch June 7th, 09, Extreme Rules in a Samoan strap match. And this would end up being Umaga's last WWE match.
The highlight's definitely the finish. Punk hits the go to sleep right into the fourth turnbuckle slap. I kind of marked out on that. It's a really cool little finish sequence.
Yes. And later that night, Punk would cash in on Jeff Hardy to win the big gold belt. Very next day, January 8th, 2009, Mr. Fatu was future endeavored, released from his contract as a result of a violation of the wellness policy. And even though this was only his second mistake, he felt to go to rehab.
Yeah, he just flat out refused to go. I was like, whoa, okay, that's one way to fucking just not have a job.
After getting released from the company, he'd do a little run in Puerto Rico, and then he would do a tour with Hulk Hogan in Australia into December 2009. And on December 4th, 2009, Fatu was found by his wife in their home. Unresponsive, blood was coming out his nose. They called 911, ambulance came, but he suffered a heart attack, and Umaga was gone at just 36 years old.
Yeah, I think it needs to be said the heart attack was induced by, they found Vicodin, Somas, and Valium, so kind of a wrestler cocktail of shit you'd expect.
Same old story. So final thoughts on the big guy, Umaga.
I think right off the bat, I'm just going to tell you 2 more Jeff Hardy matches to watch because, like Jake said, they worked really well together. Be sure to watch the One Night Stand Falls Count Anywhere match. Umaga no-sells a construction barrel thrown into his face. That's a cool moment. And then be sure to watch the steel cage match the two of them had on Raw. That's fucking great. Jeff Hardy does whisper in the wind off the top of the cage, and Umaga catches him pretty good. I literally freaked out when Hardy did it. It's a pretty amazing spot. I think the one thing I enjoyed the most about Umaga was just for a big monster dude, his offense was really cool and really looked impactful. Man, the trio woe headbutt and then that spinning sidewalk slam he would do, when he would get little dudes with that, like Punk, Jeff Hardy would whip around. He does it on Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio almost like goes around the entire planet. His big monster moves were fucking fantastic, and he knew how to execute them. He knew how to be that Samoan Bulldozer. I've probably watched too many Umaga matches for the research, but of all the finishers, I don't think anyone ever kicked out of the Samoan Spike. As stupid as that kind of is compared to his other offense, they put the Samoan Spike over like it was fucking Jake the Snake Roberts DDT times a million. Someone please correct me. I might have missed one, but I don't know. I don't think a single person ever kicked out of the Samoan Spike. They might have dodged it or parried it or whatever, but if he hit it on you, you were dead. I would recommend that other Hardy match big time, the one at Great American Bash, because it's just, they nail every little beat of that match, and it feels organic and fun. And I just don't know what else to say about him, except he was a good damn monster who I don't remember being as good as he was.
Obviously, The Rock is the most famous and arguably the best in-ring performer out of the Anoa'i family, but man, Umaga is up there too. Like, you can really tell that he's like Yokozuna's cousin as far as just this big monster who can somehow still move like a feather. I mean, Umaga was like great in the ring, man. Apparently a little too stiff at times. Between that and the Jake story and both of the reasons he got fired from the company, seems like a bit of a hothead. Throw Steve-O in the mix, but I don't know, kind of comes with a territory. You're a big monster badass. Maybe that leaks over into your real life. There aren't any like shoots or anything with him, so no clue how he was as just like a dude. He was definitely cut from that old 80s cloth, you know, trained by his uncles. I'm sure it was beat into him. Protect the business, be a badass, protect your gimmick. But I mean, he had a crazy career. Wrestlemania moments, that run in All Japan, again, just moved like a fucking butterfly in the ring, and it sucks that the pro wrestling pill curse snuck up on him and got him, because I think he had a lot more to give.
I'm going to kind of echo some of the things that Nick said. You know, I said my piece earlier, but yeah, Umaga, he would have fit in perfectly in the 80s. And if he was in that time period, like a lot of these stories of him being too stiff or having issues or people feeling this way about him wouldn't exist. Like, how many people know that Buzz Sawyer was one of the biggest assholes of all time? Or even like Dr. Death has a reputation of being kind of stiff. Like, you talk to old timers, like Steamboat will be like, oh, I remember when Dr. Death, like, he was way too stiff. And a lot of those guys that were wrestling for Crockett when they bought UWF, they always had like horror stories of wrestling Dr. Death. But you listen to anybody talk about Dr. Death now, that's nothing but, praise and love and all that. And also too, like I said with Umaga, like, he'd have a match with someone like John, he'd be like, bring it. I probably said the same thing to Jeff Hardy. They're guys that will speak very, very fondly of him, and rightfully so. It's just, I unfortunately am not one of those people. But it's my job to be fair on here. So I kind of saved the story for kind of the end, so I'm going to be as fair as possible on here. And maybe this story kind of paints the best picture of him. I remember, like, maybe this might have been a few months, maybe even weeks before he passed away. I was at a baseball card convention promoting Wrestle Reunion, and they had other wrestlers there, and I was just supposed to pass out flyers, get some buzz about the event, because some of these trading card people travel across the country, and they had like a shit ton of wrestlers. They had like the Nasty Boys, they had Christopher Nowinski, Lance Storm, Rick Steiner was there, and he had a table next to me, and like there's just all kinds of wrestling guys there. And then they had Umaga in, and this one guy was bringing in all of the wrestlers. I think Umaga was supposed to be there both days, but he decided not to show up the first day. I can't remember if that was the case or not, but I do remember the second day of the convention, he was definitely supposed to be there, and he showed up late. He showed up with an entourage. He was barely at his table. If I was a guy who spent money and brought him in, I would have been irate, because it was, and I heard that he was super expensive, hard to deal with. It was just frustrating. If I was the promoter that brought him in to make any type of money off of him, especially those trading card shows. You basically have to sit there for 6 hours and people will wander their way over to you. It's not like, hey, this is person's here between 2 and 2 and they're a highlight event and go to them. You just have to sit there for long periods of time. It's a long grinding thing. You can make your money, but it is a grinding thing. And he just wasn't willing to put up with that or do any of that. So, and there was always people asking, like, is Umaga at his table? I'm like, I don't know. And there were people like looking for him, wanted to get stuff signed by him. He just wasn't there and just kind of was blowing the whole thing off. And then, of course, everything was shut down. I was packing up. I was getting ready to leave, and I was loading stuff up, and I saw Umaga walking out. It was like the first time I'd seen him since like he'd been at the table for like 15 minutes or whatever. So he basically blew the whole thing off. And this little kid ran up to Umaga, and he was dressed like Umaga. And he just wanted to meet Umaga, and he probably been waiting all day to fucking find him and get to him. And this little kid, he had the whole like face paint stuff. He had his shirt off, wanted to meet Umaga so badly. And like he'd been waiting all day, and Umaga just kind of blew the whole thing off. And that kid finally ran over to Umaga, and Umaga's basically leaving with money in his pocket. And when this little kid ran up dressed like him, Umaga stopped and gave him all the time in the world, took pictures with him, autographed, and made that kid feel like $1 million. So it was inside of him. It was possible. He took the time to give that kid a special memory that was going to last his entire life. Like that generosity, that caring was inside of him. And I wish Eddie was around a little bit longer to pull it all together and then give that generosity to the rest of the world and show that side of him, because it was inside of him. I think that's the bigger tragedy of all this. And it is a tragedy that he's no longer with us because it's way too young. He should have been back in WWE 2 or 3 other times and maybe even AEW by now or wherever else. But he definitely, there was far more upside to him. There was far more career to him. But I also feel that there was more life to him that he didn't display to the rest of the world.
All right, that is underrated big man Umaga's 10 Bell Pod. Thank you guys for listening. Let's see, what do we got? Please check us out on patreon.com/10bellpod. We got some bonus episodes, back catalog there you can check out. You can also just throw $1 our way to say thanks. We will appreciate it. Find us on the social medias, 10bellpod.com. Do you guys got anything? Jake, you need to plug your show again?
Yes, Black Label Pro, August 22nd, IWTV. Check it out. They have 2 shows, I believe, this Saturday when this podcast comes out. So if you listen to this in a timely fashion, immediately as they drop, you can see it, you can stream it, IWTV. I know I should be plugging High Spots Network, but I'm wrestling on IWTV right now until I'm wrestling on something that's going to be on the High Spots Wrestling Network. Virtual gimmick tables, as always, on the High Spots Facebook and the High Spots YouTube, because you can only buy items via the Facebook Live feed. So virtual gimmick table, make sure you check it out.
Leave us a rating and review, please. Please watch Selling In, for the love of God. Jake's episode just came out. Fight the patriarchy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Man Scout Jake Manning. Thank you very much for listening to 10 Bell Pod. I can't thank you guys enough for being subscribers and people who leave reviews, but also, too, big thank you to people who are our patrons on Patreon. Now, some of you may be hearing that like, wait a minute, I'm not a patron on a Patreon for you guys. And you might be like, hey, I want to do that. I want an extra thank you. I left a review, I subscribed, but I want an extra thank you from the Man Scout Jake Manning, because that third thank you doesn't apply to you unless you are a patron on our Patreon page. Make sure you check it out at patreon.com/10bellpod.